able to do this, and we might get some reverberation. I don't know. Anyway, look, Lisa, thanks very much for making time for me this morning. And what I do from time to time is I chip in with a few ideas. You know, I have a number of people I've coached over the years who've been on council and who've been involved with city politics. And so I had a few suggestions, most of which I've run by you and Councillor Clarke Kelly already, but I thought I would add a few more if that's okay.
Of course.
And it's basically part of my civic duty, and I'm a busybody anyway, so you know I can't help myself. So I thought I would I thought I would summarize 5 different ideas that might benefit the city of Ottawa and might be something that the councillor would champion, assuming that you and the other members of staff are in favor. And stop me anytime if I'm not being clear. So idea 1, we talked about Dunrobin Village Plaza, the councillor and I, and we'd really like to see the return of Dunrobin Village Plaza to its former glory. And one of the things I think he mentioned to me, or maybe you mentioned to me, or some other people in your office mentioned, was that the plaza, which I built originally, I think you know that, right?
Yeah.
The plaza has it got blown over, obviously, by the tornado in 2018, and now it sits there boarded up, as you can see on the screen. And what I think is important here, at least the question I understood, which was holding it up now, is what size to make the septic system. You know, if you put a restaurant in here, you know, pizzeria like we had before, Sammy's Pizza, you need a much bigger septic system than if you put in, say, a physiotherapy clinic or a law office. So if you have a restaurant, you need a bigger septic system. So I consulted with one of the leading experts in rural plazas in Ottawa. And what he told me was that the sizing of a septic system, in his opinion anyway, should be for the highest use case. In other words, you should put in a septic system that would accommodate a pizzeria, for example, not just a physiotherapy clinic or a law office. And the reason for that is it will give the owner the maximum flexibility in terms of leasing over the next generation.
And Bruce, I'm not sure that changing the septic was in their purview. Give me 30 seconds.
Sure.
Just
okay, I'm gonna pause the recording.
Yeah. That so proponent at a meeting back spring, I believe, of last year, this year, and so they are trying to figure out what they're going to do about the septic.
Yeah, I understood that, but you
expand it or
right. I understand that, but when I Lisa, when I built that building many years ago now, more than a generation ago, I sized it, the septic system, it was humongous, so it was for the highest use case. I mean, that is the recommendation, I think, that anybody, both from an economic point of view and an environmental point of view, makes the most sense.
Okay, so that was already done then.
Well, that's my recommendation, but what I did 25 years ago, I would imagine the septic system has to be replaced. And what I'm suggesting is that,
all of that.
right, but what I'm suggesting is that they look at the highest use case, because otherwise, if they, let's say they rendered it to a physiotherapist and a law office, but 5 years from now they changed to a restaurant use, they would have to dig up the septic system and improve it, because otherwise they couldn't accommodate the use.
Gotcha.
Anyway, that's enough on that one. Idea number 2 was, and we talked about this, you and I, a little bit, and I know the councillor doesn't want any more aggregate operations on Carp Road. He wants more manufacturers, like one of my clients, Humble Creek. And one of the things that I think would really help, not just West Carleton and Kanata, but would help the city of Ottawa, is if we were to connect the sewers from Stittsville, where we have city water mains and sewers, and we have city water and sewer in Carp Village, if we were to connect that. Because as you know, we have anywhere, I don't know, 15,000 to maybe 30,000 acres of industrial land along the Carp Road corridor that can't be developed or is more difficult to develop without city services. So
that's been in the site. So there's Campeau Corp or BIA, headed up by, you probably would have interacted with Roddy Boulevard when he worked at the city at some point in time. So he's directly involved with the BI, and that's something that they have been. It's got Councillor Glenn Gower, Councillor Kelly, and then a number of the business operators along the corridor, and certainly connecting and improving on the infrastructure is top of mind. There's a regular meeting that happens, and there's another one coming up with infrastructure folks from the city to help make that happen as well. So it would be right on. What's the word I'm looking for? You're on point on this.
Well, you know, this is not new. I mean, I've been suggesting it for a long time. And the other reason I suggested it was that industrial land in Ottawa has become very expensive. You know, you can see that lot sales, industrial land is selling for anywhere from $400,000 or $500,000 an acre to $1 million an acre. And more people certainly would come to the Carp Road corridor if water mains and sewers were available and make it much easier to develop. And it would be a huge tax windfall for the city of Ottawa too. You know, Barcelona has made it a priority to become more self-sufficient by 2050. You know, more manufacturing, more grow local, more production local. I mean, there's so much that we need to do so that we're not entirely dependent on vegetables from California or Mexico, right? And we definitely need more industrial production. I think there's no question that we're seeing a mini industrial boom in Ottawa, but we also need to prepare for that. Yeah. All right, enough of that.
You're not wrong, and it is top of mind.
All right. And the other thing, this would be very controversial, I'm sure, but I actually don't like the name carp. You know, it's a bottom feeding fish full of worms. And I was wondering if we couldn't at least consider, and I've talked to the BIA about this, rebranding at least part of Carp Road, where the major industrial focus is, to some other name other than carp. And this is just a personal thing, Lisa. You can ignore this and the councillor can ignore it. But I really like the fact that squadron leader John Henry Tudhope comes from the area. And I thought we could call it something like Tudhope Drive or something like that. I really would like to see a rebranding of Carp Road. And again, as the councillor has said, not just with more, you know, aggregate operations or pavers or whatever, but you know, really make an effort to make this a higher end industrial park.
The city does have a commemorative naming process where you would be, if I can pull it up here. I can here, let me make a note, and I'll see if I can dig it up and send it to you. But it's quite a process, in the same way as they just rebranded the Ottawa River Parkway, you might recall. To the Kibitsi Trail. So there's a full commemorative naming process that has to happen. It involves consultation with the Anishinaabe, but I will. I'll send you the information.
Yeah, I think it would be worth at least talking about it. You know, I mean, he was a great war hero. He was a squadron leader, and he also, I think, started Trans-Canada Airmail routes starting in Ottawa, extending through the prairies and the Rocky Mountains. So he is an amazing individual. You know, it's part of our history. And the other thing that I think the city of Ottawa should be more proactive, this is my opinion, in terms of, you know, doing more with the Carp Airport. I mean, obviously the Carp Airport is, you know, we have some residential development around it now. It was supposed to, I don't know if you remember, it was supposed to be a fly-in community, Lisa?
Yeah, I do, under West Corp.
Yeah, and I talked to those guys, and I was not a big believer in that. There's a big difference between building a fly-in community in Florida and one in Ottawa. There are a heck of a lot more private plane owners in Florida, including John Travolta, who's a licensed pilot and has a huge plane But I mean, I just wasn't a believer. So now we have Diamond View Estates and other kinds of developments going on, and they're adding some more houses. But I really think what Carp should be is it should be an air freight terminal, because we definitely need more just-in-time ability to bring parts in and also export. So I just think there's more that we could do with the whole Carp Road corridor. So that was one of my suggestions too. And I mentioned that to the BIA.
Now, historically, what, because I remember First Air had quite the...
It did, yeah.
And what happened to them?
Excuse me, I think my recollection is I think they actually went bankrupt. You know, airlines, I don't have to tell you, Lisa, you know, airlines go out of business on a relatively regular basis. You know, labor costs go up, fuel costs go up. You know, we enter a recession, air freight and passengers go down, and or you get into a pandemic. And so, you know, it is a bumpy road for sure. I don't think I'd want to run an airline. Maybe you wouldn't either. But you know, I do think we can do more with the Carp Airport than just build a few houses around it. That's just my take on it. All right, we're getting through it. I won't keep too much longer. In terms of servicing the Carp Road corridor with water mains and sewers, I did something a long time ago in Kanata, where we put in a big sewer main called the East March Trunk Sewer. And I'm sure you know this kind of stuff, Lisa, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. In the East March Trunk Sewer, which was, you know, in the many millions of dollars, the city did front end that infrastructure, but they raised the property taxes in the area for the benefiting landowners, and they recovered all of that. So I do think that
through a specific levy.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't have to tell the city or you or the councillor how to do that, but you know, I think that if you do service the Carp Road corridor, the benefiting landowners should in fact pay for that, because they'll benefit.
That has come up in discussion, and so municipal act requires that in order, well, you would know this, in order for something like that to happen, 80% of landowners have to be consulted, and 80% of those, it's done through referendum, 80% of those have to be agreeable to
Right.
it. Certainly, I would hope that they would all see the benefit of doing so. And I don't want to misrepresent. I don't know how those conversations have gone, but I'll certainly raise it with Clarke again and get clarification.
Yeah, I mean, 80% is
contact with Eli, so he would have historical knowledge as well.
Yeah. Well, 80% is a high barrier, as you know. I mean, it's hard to get 80% of people to agree that Mother's Day is a good thing. You know, so it would be better if it was like 2/3, obviously, but it is what it is. So 80 makes sense. And we'll see, but that's what we did in Kanata, and it opened up the entire area. I mean, you know where Alcatel is or Nokia is. All of that would not have happened without the East March Trunk Sewer, and I was deeply involved in that.
Right.
So we
it definitely changed the area.
It sure did. I mean,
ride my bike along that dirt road.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's so cool, Lisa. That's a great story. Yeah, so I do think that it would be a shame if if we didn't get the 80% to agree, because the benefit would be just ginormous. It would also benefit, of course, I don't have to tell you this, industrial development pays higher taxes and demands far fewer services than, say, residential development. You know, so if Carp Road becomes a major industrial node for the next 50 or 100 years because of this, it'll fiscally benefit. It'd be a fiscal plus for the city of Ottawa, but it means that fewer services, more money, and that's a good thing too for the city. All right, enough of that. Idea 3. And I brought this up with the councillor when Humboldt Creek came in. Humboldt Creek Homes, which is in his ward, came in and talked about what they're doing with tiny homes. They're building tiny homes in his ward, and one of the things that I think the city might consider, which would really help, I think, with the affordable housing crisis, would be to have some tiny house towns. And I did mention this as well. And I wanted to say, just for the record, because we are recording this just for the councillor and you and me, but I wanted to put it in the recording. The reason why I think the city could actually pioneer something like this is, you know, I don't know if you remember that Mayor Ben Franklin in the city of Nepean bought all the land around where the Colonnade Business Park is, right? And developed a business park basically to break the land monopoly, industrial land monopoly that Bob Campeau had. Do you remember that?
I don't know.
It's too,
No.
maybe it's too far back now for you,
No.
for a young chick like you, but you know, I certainly remember it. And so what happened was Bob Campeau had almost a monopoly of industrial land in the west end of Ottawa. And he was charging at that time a very high number, about 150,000 an acre for industrial land. And Ben Franklin and the city of Nepean said, to heck with that. And they developed, they put roads and water mains and sewers in, and developed the Colonnade Road Business Park, which has been very, very, very successful, as you know. And you know, thousands of jobs are there, and I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars of property taxes it generates for the city. But the city of Nepean bought the land, they put the roads in, the water mains and the sewers in, and then they sold off the blocks to break the monopoly of Bob Campeau. And they were able, the city of Nepean was able to do it on a cost recovery basis, selling land in the Colonnade Road Business Park for about $40,000 to $60,000 an acre instead of $150,000 an acre. So you can imagine what happened to Bob Campeau's monopoly. It went away, and Ben Franklin deserves a lot of credit for that. So there are precedents, if we look back in the Ottawa area, for doing something like this. One of the guys, one of the groups I coach, you see on the screen here, these are two young men I coach. On the left is Aaron Markle, on the right is Brad Karchik. And they have done, with the blessing of the city of Rockland, they have opened the first tiny home village in the area that I'm aware of anyway, with the support of the city of Rockland. So it's not unknown in the area, A, for the city to take, to be proactive in terms of development, and B, to support, you know, a tiny house town, which I think would be hugely beneficial to the city, to, you know, to show that we're doing something to address the affordable housing crisis, or at least trying to.
I looked this up after you mentioned it at the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys have been very successful, and they're populating the place now with tiny homes, and it's hard for them to keep up with demand, to be honest. And so what I was thinking, I was spitballing, but I was thinking that it would be great to see the city of Ottawa proactive on this in Kanata, Riverside South, Barrhaven, Orleans. And I added another one, Lisa, this morning. How about West Carleton? You know, when I was sitting with you folks in the old West Carleton Town Hall next to the Cavanagh Sensplex, I thought quite some time ago that we should build a village, another village in West Carleton. These villages can be fantastic. You know, Dunrobin Village, as you know, I'm fond of it. I've been active in the area, and my family has anyway, since 1955, I think. And I really like the little village. It's different than living downtown on Elgin Street, obviously. So I thought, you know, maybe we could put a tiny house village in West Carleton too. So if the city of Ottawa acted as the developer, you know, they would, you know, obviously, you know, develop the land much as Nepean did back in the day, and then they would sell it off either in pieces or in total.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly housing stock in the city has not come anywhere close to hitting its housing targets.
I'll say.
The province and federal government. Now with the new federal funding, I haven't looked at it too closely, but these kinds of opportunities are available now.
Yeah, I think so.
Partnerships with other levels of government.
Yeah, right? and again, it would be on a cost recovery basis. I am absolutely sure that if we had, say, 5 areas that the city of Ottawa owned and had developed for a tiny house town, and we put it up for sale, people like people like Humboldt Creek and others would be very active in pursuing that opportunity. And I'm sure, I mean, if the city wanted to make a profit, they could, but I suspect that they would just do what Nepean did, which is a cost recovery.
The only challenge with rural areas is, of course, there's no, we don't have public transit, we don't have city services.
That's true.
The infrastructure, again, out this way. So it would have to be through, communal well septic.
Yeah, I think so. I think a communal well and communal septic makes sense. I do some coaching in the United States, and many of the New England states, they do exactly that, Lisa. They have communal septic and communal water, and it works really well. It's called conservation subdivision design, and it saves a lot of land. And it also means that individual homeowners don't have to be water engineers or septic engineers, because a lot of people don't know how to take care of their wells or their septic system. So I like the communal idea, although it's a little bit more difficult to get it approved by the Ministry of Environment. But having said that, it doesn't necessarily have to be, next to on Carp Road, next to the Cavanagh Sensplex and the old West Carleton Townhall. But if we are successful in bringing services from Stittsville all the way to the village of Carp, then it wouldn't be on well and septic, would it?
The village of Carp is what's that, 9 kilometers away?
Yeah.
So it would be I don't know what.
Yeah, maybe that's a little too far, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be there, but it could be somewhere in the area where you could connect it to water and sewer. And especially if we were successful at convincing 80% of the landowners that this was a good idea to connect the systems. But you're right. I mean, it might not be there, but it might be somewhere, relatively close. Yes, there is.
Zoned youth development, I believe, or whatever the equivalent is with the city. So there are some opportunities.
Exactly.
Not really right along the corridor, or when you go off the beaten track,
And just so you know, Lisa, where I'm working, I work on tiny house towns in Colorado, in California, in Idaho, and of course out west as well, in BC, and here in Ontario. And one of the things that I brought to the idea of the tiny house town is that you don't just have tiny houses like what I'm showing here on the screen. This is one of the humble ones, the noble. But also you have small workshops that are available, so people can have, create, live, work, play areas. Because it's very important to not consider this like a trailer park, like the Trailer Park Boys. It's not that. It's about people who want less house, more life. They want a smaller eco footprint, but they also want the opportunity to run their own side hustles. So you've got the tiny house, and then you've got the workshop next door. It's a great combination, and I have actually developed some of these myself.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. I buy these sheds on the left-hand side from North Country Sheds in Smith Falls, and they're a fantastic company.
Yep.
They're fantastic. I buy quite a few of them, by the way. Just on my wife and I do a little bit of development here and there. All right, I'm not going to keep you much longer. Idea number 4, which I did bring up with the councillor, and we don't need any help at this stage, but it looks like the city of Ottawa is going to approve the Noble, which I showed on the previous slide, this thing here on the right-hand side. It looks like it's big enough, and it will, as long as it's on piers, it will be approved for a backyard coach house. And if we can get that approved in the city of Ottawa, where we could roll these very nice buildings into the backyard, hook them up to services, we could really contribute to A, a great deal more coach houses, and B, a lot more affordable homes.
And now you probably are familiar. There are many documents how to plan your coach house in Ottawa. Just in that.
Yeah, I had a small hand in writing the coach house bylaw.
Oh.
I was a consultant to the city on their official plan review, and one of my particular focuses, I don't know if that's the right word, foci or focuses, was the coach house bylaw. And I did have some impact there. And I wanted to get tiny houses approved for coach houses when we did the coach house bylaw. And some of the people there, they were terrific to work with, but they said, over our dead body, you will never, ever, ever get tiny houses approved for coach houses. And I said, okay, well, I'll just leave that for now. But now, actually, just a few years later now, we might actually get that done. So it looks very promising. And I just put this on the record, that's all.
Yeah, because I mean, they already are, they're considered secondary dwelling units, and they are permitted in Ottawa's urban, suburban, rural areas, subject to section 3.2 of the official plan. So they are, as you noted, as long as they are, the wheels are off, so to speak, right?
Right. Well, you can leave the wheels on if you want to. You just have to jack them up on screw piles and make sure they're on a permanent foundation. Just in case if you ever wanted to remove it, you just undo it you jack it up and remove the screw piles, and you can just haul it away. So you don't necessarily have to take off the wheels, but you do have to jack it up and put it on screw piles. And the Noble here that you see, this is the floor plan here, and I really like this unit. I'm going to buy a few of them myself for things that I need. It's really great floor plan. It's got a master bedroom here at grade. I don't know if you can see it on your screen.
Yeah.
And you got a kind of a cheater ensuite here, and then you come into a galley kitchen. You've got a washer and dryer here. Then you've got the entertainment area here with a sofa bed here. You got a counter where it's a lunch counter, but also a work counter, a closet, and a fridge here. And then you got cubby stairs to the upstairs. So you actually have a loft. And I guess you could use the loft for storage, or you might be able to sleep some additional people there. So if you pull out the sofa bed and put 2 people here and 2 people here, you can actually sleep 5 people in this unit. So it's pretty good. I think it's a very good idea and design. This is the last one, and I promised, as I said, not to keep you very long, Lisa.
It's all good.
This is West Carleton flooding, right? I don't have to tell you guys anything about this. This was terrible.
Yeah, and I'm pretty familiar with that.
I bet you are. And I was looking at this sign, which called it the no wave zone, right? I mean, it was really bad. I had a number of friends who were caught in this. It's not that long ago, right? May of 2023.
No, it's fresh. It's still fresh.
It's still fresh. So one of the things that I talked to the councillor about, and I think you as well, is I do think the city of Ottawa should purchase some tiny homes as a rolling stock emergency preparedness thing. I do. And I drafted up with the Humble Creek guys a note. Well, I'm going to send you this. I'll after our call is over, I'll just forward it to you. I think that the city of Ottawa should have 5 or 10 of these, and they can use it wherever it's needed. I mean, you can roll them into flooded areas, and they can put, if you had 10 of these Nobles that the boys have designed at Humble Creek, you could sleep 50 people. As an emergency shelter, I think it's very useful. And these are quite beautiful units, and they're good down to whatever the Canadian winter calls for. Like my wife and I wanted to buy an RV that we could use in the winter in Canada. And all the RV people, Lisa, if you've ever talked to them, they thought that we were crazy. I said, well, we like going to the States, to Florida and Arizona. But what if we wanted to visit our daughter in Calgary and go out, in the wintertime? We've got a daughter there with her husband and her 2 little kids, and we love visiting them. Could we park the RV in their driveway, for the weekend and stay in it? Well, if it's below -3 or -4, the answer is no, you cannot. And I couldn't believe that we make RVs in Canada. We build them, not just in Canada, places like Minnesota. We build them, and they're only good down to -3 or -4. To me, it's incredible.
Yeah. Now this one, I'll be incredibly blunt. I don't think that there would be much of an appetite. I mean, certainly, I'll bring all of this to Clarke, but the city doesn't typically keep housing stock or housing opportunity stock at the ready in case something happens, right? They're very much a just in time, and in cases of emergency, typically Red Cross gets kicked in
Mhm.
and they use their resources in order to, there's a very sort of, it's very prescriptive. The process is in place. Now, that said, just this past week, the councillor and our team met with Minister Graydon Smith, who's natural resources now.
Yeah.
Went through Constance Bay, talked about flooding and some of the investments that the province is making in terms of emergency response and preparedness. So, this is timely in that it is something that could be brought to them as a, possible solution when people are as a result of these situations.
Well, I mean, it's an idea and a suggestion because if climate change continues to accelerate, Lisa, we're going to need to be a little quicker on our feet. And, I think the Red Cross does an incredible job, and there are other people in this industry who are, quick to mobilize. But I think the city of Ottawa, we had the ice storm and we had the flooding and we've had so many other issues. And not to mention, on days when it gets -20 or -30, these are the kinds of emergency shelters that you could use to bring homeless people in if they're dying on the streets. And so, I mean, I it's a suggestion. If the city doesn't like it, don't do it. But I do think that we need to be more self-reliant. I attend a number of conferences, and I've listened to the Barcelona plan, which is amazing. They're going to try and be self-sufficient in energy, waste, clothing, food, manufactured goods. I mean, as much as they can be. I mean, you can never be 100% independent. I mean, Barcelona is part of the world, but I think that's the direction that the city of Ottawa has to go in. Long after you and I go and see St. Peter or whatever, there'll be people here, your children and grandchildren, my children and grandchildren, trying to cope, right? And I'm just saying that the things that we're talking about today, making Ottawa a stronger economy and more self-sufficient in everything, I think at least in my mind, it is a priority. And because Clarke is so young, he's what, is he 34? 36. Oh, he's old. Because Clarke is 36, I thought I would make a few suggestions to him to benefit his ward for sure. To benefit, Humboldt Creek, for example, if possible. I mean, they're coaching clients of mine, but they are in his ward, but also to benefit the city of Ottawa over the long term, because, he could be involved for a very long time. I'm 72 as of yesterday. And thank you. But, Clarke at 36, he's half my age. He could be involved in making the city a better place for decades to come. So that's why I did what I did today.
No, much appreciated, and I know he'll appreciate receiving that. I mean, you're definitely on trend. Everything is at least in the lens of the city. This gives some additional resources when they do talk about consider. Different response. I'm going to take a look at the provincial. I haven't had a chance yet since we met with Minister Smith in terms of what the provincial direction or what the contribution is, what they're looking at, because not all emergency preparedness plans are created equally, right? Some of it's infrastructure that is simply beefing up community centers. So we'll take a look and see what's available, because maybe it is a good option, right?
Well, it's just, these are suggestions that I made to try and be helpful. And like I said, I'm a busybody, so I stick my nose in sometimes where it's welcome and sometimes maybe not so much.
Absolutely welcome.
Listen, Lisa, I really am glad you spent some time with me today, and we made the Zoom thing work, even though we had to sort of do the telephone Zoom thing, but it worked.
Yeah. And it's one of the things, being out in this corner, yet the city of Ottawa, we are sort of like the redheaded stepchildren in that.
I get that.
Services and IT and getting that kind of thing resolved, we're back of the bus.
Yeah, no, that is something that is obvious to me, that many of our city staff, many of them, of course, very highly qualified, they aren't really that familiar with some of the rural issues. And, that's been a complaint ever since amalgamation went ahead, right?
Well, that's why, so Rural Summit is being revised next year.
No way.
It is.
Excellent.
It is. And that was one of the things that Clarke really drove, something he campaigned on, and something that he's been pushing for. So we will have 2 sessions of Rural Summit again with an intention of facilitating some changes, delicate as they may be, but baby steps, right?
Well, I'm all in favor of that. I was a supporter of amalgamation. I was, but some of the results have been less than positive. And one of the major drawbacks is, when I talk to people at City Hall, many of them couldn't find, West Carleton with a compass and a map. And
it's interesting, Bruce, actually. This is my second iteration in this office. I worked with Eli back 10 years up till.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that. I don't remember that.
So from 2004 to 2012.
Okay.
And, so 10 years later, back again, and I can tell you, there seemed to be a lot more effort in 2004. In the soon years after amalgamation and post-amalgamation, to embrace the rural cousins into the city, and a lot of that seems to be lost. But it's not just rural city staff. But anyways, there are definitely some changes that are needed, and
I'm glad to hear that, and I really like the work the councillor and your office is doing. I think it's fantastic. I can't wait to see that. That's what time next year will that be?
They're talking. They don't have things finalized yet. They're talking about the first one being March, April. So
Okay.
after budget.
Okay. Very good.
But it's pretty much a given. So council has already agreed to make it happen, and now they're just talking about pouring back. So we think the project charter for the rural. Nice.
I see it perfectly. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I'm really glad to. Are you allowed to share that?
I believe it's public, and if it is, let me just make a note here. I'll confirm. And
if it's public, if you don't mind sharing it with me, I'd be very interested in reading it. All right, I have to go, and I've kept you for almost 45 minutes. So thank you again, Lisa. I'll put this on YouTube unlisted. You'll have a copy of it probably within the hour.
Okay, that's fabulous.
I'll see you later. My regards to everybody in the office.
Thank you.